The heat was the sort that bent fences and quieted even the most quarrelsome chickens. It came off the ground in shimmers, making the whole world look unsure of itself. July had sucked the bones of the land bare, and in that sweltering noon, the town of Denton Hollow slowed to a hush. Just then, they came walking in. A boy thin as fence wire, maybe 13 or 14, shoulders square, like he'd learned too young not to flinch. Behind him, a little girl, no older than 4, her boots scuffing the dirt, and her arms wrapped around a stuffed cloth rabbit that had seen better days. She didn't cry, just clung to her brother like she was trying to stay part of his shadow. And in the boy's hand, dragging behind him in the dust, was a suitcase. Old leather, cracked, held together with rope and hope. They didn't speak, didn't ask for anything, just kept walking. The folks in Denton Hollow watched from porches and windows. Hands paused over cards and coffee cups. No one moved to meet them. Strangers didn't bring good news, and kids traveling alone brought even less. Calder Nash was leaning against the water trough outside the general store when he saw them come in. He'd seen a lot of things in his life. Seen men lose everything in a poker hand. Seen a preacher shoot a man in the chest over a lie too big to forgive. Seen horses shot in mercy and women ride off in silence. But he hadn't seen this. Not a boy with war behind his eyes and a baby girl on his heels. They passed him without a word. But Mira paused just a moment. She looked up at Calder like she was trying to decide if he was real. Then she hurried to catch up to Levi, grabbing the edge of his shirt. Calder watched them disappear past the feed store toward the edge of town. He didn't follow, not yet. They found an empty patch of dirt by the old chapel well. The chapel had burned out 5 winters ago, leaving nothing but a stone foundation and scorched wood beams pointing at the sky. Mira sat on one and pulled her knees to her chest. Levi dropped the suitcase and opened it, pulled out a small blanket, a dented can of peaches, and a tin cup. No shelter, no water, just 2 kids in the sun. Still, Levi acted like this was normal, like this was how it had always been. He sat beside Mira and opened the peaches with a small folding knife, gave her half with a quiet nod. She ate with both hands, trying not to cry and failing anyway. Calder found them an hour later, when the town had gone back to pretending nothing unusual had happened. He walked slow, no spurs, no rifle, just his hat in one hand and his coat flung over his shoulder. Levi stood the moment he saw him, stepping between the girl and the man. "Don't want trouble," Levi said. "Didn't bring any," Calder answered. "We're not staying, just stopping." "Looks like you already stopped." Levi's jaw tightened. He didn't speak. Calder looked down at the girl. She stared back, peach juice on her chin, hair stuck to her cheek. Then he looked at the suitcase. The rope was starting to fray. "You got folks?" Calder asked. "No." "No name either?" Levi hesitated. "Levi, her name's Mira." "You running?" Levi didn't answer. "That's fine," Calder said. "Sometimes the road don't go where it should. Sometimes it runs out, and all you got left is dirt and your feet." Levi looked down. Calder said, "I got a place a bit out past the ridge. Ain't much. House stands, roof don't leak, animals don't bite if you feed 'em. We don't need—" "I didn't ask what you need. I said I got it." Silence stretched long between them. Then Mira spoke for the first time. "Do you got a bed?" Calder's face softened. "Yeah, little one. I got 2. That evening, Levi helped Mira climb into Calder's wagon. She curled up with the blanket wrapped around her, rabbit in hand, already dozing before they reached the trees. Levi sat beside Calder, stiff and quiet. "You don't trust me," Calder said. "No." "Good. Don't make a habit of it. But she's tired. You're tired. And no one's going to hurt you while you're on my land." "You don't know us." "No," Calder said. "But I know what it looks like when someone's run far enough." They didn't speak the rest of the ride, but when they reached the ranch, an old place tucked beneath the ridge with a split barn, a well, and a porch full of creaking boards, Levi climbed down and lifted Mira gently into his arms. He followed Calder into the house. There wasn't much. One main room, a fire burning low, stew already simmering on the stove. Calder set a bowl in front of Levi, filled it, and slid bread across the table. "Eat slow. Your stomach's probably forgotten how to behave." Levi didn't eat at first, just stared at it. Mira was curled up by the fire, fast asleep. Finally, Levi picked up the spoon. When he finished, Calder said, "There's a bed in the back. You can take the floor if you want." Levi shook his head. "She gets the bed." Calder looked at him. "Then I'll take the floor." Levi blinked. "You don't have to." "Didn't say I did. Just means she ain't sleeping alone." That night, Calder lay awake on a wool blanket by the hearth. The fire crackled, the wind rustled outside, and for the first time in a long while, the house didn't feel so quiet. Upstairs, Levi sat beside his sister, one hand on her shoulder, making sure she still breathed like he'd done every night since they left. And for the first time since they'd run, he didn't have to keep his boots on while he slept. The next morning came in slow and golden, with light spilling through the warped window panes like warm syrup. Mira was still asleep, curled under the quilt Calder had laid over her. Her rabbit had fallen to the floor. Levi picked it up and brushed off the dust, placing it beside her. Then he stood in the kitchen, watching Calder stir the coals and toss more wood into the stove. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it just was. "You hungry?" Calder asked without looking up. Levi nodded. "There's eggs, bread too." "Can I work for it?" Levi asked. Calder paused. "You already did." Levi blinked. "When?" "When you carried her all this way." He said nothing after that, just poured water into the kettle and began cooking. Levi sat down and ate like someone who hadn't eaten 2 days ago, but 2 lifetimes back. That day, Levi helped split kindling and patch the back fence. Calder showed him how to properly wrap wire without slicing your fingers open. He handed over gloves that were too big and a hat that was too small. Levi never complained. Mira followed them around barefoot, dragging a stick like it was a sword. She hummed to herself. Not quite a tune, just a sound to keep her company. At noon, Calder poured them both water from the jug and leaned back under the shade of an old cottonwood. "You want to tell me why you came all this way?" he asked. Levi stared at the dirt. "No." Calder nodded. "Fair enough." Then, after a beat, Levi said, "We were in Pike's Hollow. Mama worked at the boarding house. Mira stayed with her during the day. I found odd jobs, stables, deliveries, sometimes just watching people's horses." "And your father?" "Never knew him." Calder didn't ask more. Levi went on anyway. "One day, a man came, stayed at the boarding house. He had a temper, loud, hit things, people. Mama tried to keep us away, said he wasn't staying long." He paused. His fingers gripped the cup tight. "One night, I heard her scream. Mira was playing nearby, not listening or pretending not to. When I got to the room, she was on the floor, bleeding. He was gone. A long silence. The sheriff didn't care, said she was probably stealing from him, said we were lucky he didn't kill all of us. Calder's jaw tightened. I buried her behind the chapel, took what little we had, left that night. How far did you walk? Till my shoes gave out, then barefoot. Calder let out a breath. How long ago? 4 weeks, Levi said. In town, a stranger arrived the next day. Tall, dressed too neat for the dust. He asked the barkeep if anyone had seen a boy, maybe 13, dragging a suitcase with a little girl in tow. He said he was looking for family, said the boy had run off in the night. The barkeep shrugged, said maybe he saw someone pass through. Couldn't be sure. But by sundown, the whole town was buzzing. And one rancher on the ridge got a quiet visit from the stable hand who said only 2 words. He's looking. Levi saw Calder oiling his rifle that night. You think he's coming here? The boy asked. Don't know, Calder said, but I've lived long enough not to ignore a warning. Levi stared at the floorboards. He's not family. You said he ran. I lied. Calder looked up. He didn't run. He worked at the boarding house too. Said he was my uncle. Mama never liked him, never trusted him. But she didn't have the money to send him away. He wanted to take Mira. Said I wasn't old enough to raise her. Did you ever see him hurt her? No, Levi said, but I saw him smile at her in a way I didn't like. That was enough. Calder stood. Then he's not coming for her because he cares. He's coming because he thinks no one will stop him. Levi looked up. Will you? I will. Levi said nothing, but his hand reached out and rested for just a second on the table near Calder's. Then he stood and went to check on Mira. The next day, Calder sent a message into town. If the stranger wanted to talk, he could come up the ridge and speak like a man, not sniff around behind backs. It was a gamble, but Calder didn't like games, and he didn't like cowards worse. The man arrived just after sunset. Mira was asleep upstairs. Levi stood on the porch. I'll handle it, Calder said. I'm staying, Levi said. Calder nodded. The man dismounted. He had the face of someone who'd never earned his calluses, just worn them like a costume. His eyes flicked from Calder to Levi. Evening, he said. Didn't mean to stir things up. Just looking for my niece and nephew. You got papers? Calder asked. No, sir, just blood. Blood don't mean much out here. The man laughed once, but it sounded dry. I get that, but Mira, she's got nobody else. She's got him, Calder said, nodding toward Levi. He's a boy. He's a man where it counts. The man's smile faded. You going to stop me? Calder stepped forward. I won't need to, he said, because if you try to take her, she'll scream. And when she does, the whole ranch will hear, and so will my gun. A long pause. The man's hand twitched near his coat. Levi didn't flinch. Calder didn't blink. Finally, the man muttered something under his breath, turned, and mounted up. As he rode off, Calder said, just loud enough, next time you come up this ridge, bring a coffin. The man didn't look back. That night, Mira woke crying. Levi rushed in and held her, whispering until her breathing slowed. Calder stood in the doorway. She dreaming again? He asked. She does when he gets close, Levi whispered. Then he's further than he's ever been now. Levi looked down at her. She deserves better. She's got better, Calder said. She's got you. The next few days passed like a hanging cloud, quiet but too still to trust. Levi worked harder than ever, fixed fences, hauled water, even climbed onto the roof with Calder to re-tar the leak above the bedroom. Mira followed behind like a duckling, never more than 5 paces away from her brother, always glancing over her shoulder. They didn't say it, but they both felt it. The stranger would be back, and next time he might not come alone. Calder spent the evenings cleaning his Winchester and sharpening a long, straight hunting knife that hadn't seen daylight in years. Levi sat nearby, learning more from watching than any words could teach. "Ever fired one?" Calder asked one night, nodding at the rifle. Levi hesitated, then shook his head. "Mama never let me near one." "She was probably right," Calder said. Then, after a moment, "But this ain't a time for being right. This is a time for knowing how." He handed the rifle to Levi, unloaded, bolt open. Levi took it slowly, like holding a sleeping animal that might bite. "It's not about power," Calder said. "It's about control. You aim only if you're willing to answer for what happens next." Levi nodded. "I don't want to hurt nobody." "Neither do I," Calder said, "but I won't let someone take what's mine just because I'm polite." Levi's grip tightened. "She's not mine, but she's all I have left. That makes her yours." On the 4th night, a storm rolled in. Not rain, but wind. Hot, dry, clawing wind that shook the shutters and whispered under the eaves like it was trying to tell them something. Levi couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch with a blanket around his shoulders, eyes scanning the horizon. The stars were hiding, the moon was thin, and his chest wouldn't stop aching with something he didn't have a name for. Calder joined him just before midnight, setting a tin cup of warm milk beside him. "Can't sleep either?" Levi asked. "Sleep don't visit much when trouble's close," Calder said. After a moment, Levi said quietly, "He's not my uncle." Calder didn't reply. He just waited. "He said he was, back in Pike's Hollow, said he was Mama's brother, but she never talked about him, never let him in. He just showed up." "You think he's lying?" "I know he is," Levi said. "I found a letter she'd written stuffed in her sewing box. Said his name wasn't Hayes, like he claimed. Said he was a drifter she'd known years back who'd come sniffing around again. She said if he ever came close, I should take Mira and run." "And you did?" "Not fast enough," Levi whispered. Calder looked at him. "You ran far enough to find me. That's something." The next day started like all the others. Chores, sun, sweat, the smell of animals, and earth. But by noon, the sheriff from town rode up the trail, dust clinging to his shoulders. "Morning, Nash," he said, tipping his hat. Calder wiped his hands and walked to the fence. Levi stayed near the barn, listening. "Heard your guest came back," the sheriff said. "He did," Calder replied. "He stopped by my office this morning. Said the boy was his kin. Claimed he was going to file papers in Franklin, prove custody." Calder didn't answer right away. "Then he doesn't have any papers." "No, but if he brings some, the circuit judge might listen." Calder's voice dropped a tone. "You going to help him take that girl?" The sheriff shifted in the saddle. "I ain't saying that. Just saying it's getting louder in town. Folks don't like trouble." "Nash, I don't like liars," Calder said flatly, "or men who prey on the weak." "You planning to do something illegal?" "Only if the law turns its back," the sheriff sighed. "You've got a good reputation, Calder. People respect you. Don't ruin it, over someone else's kid. She ain't someone else's, Calder said. Not anymore. The sheriff tipped his hat again. I didn't hear that. And then he rode away. That evening, Levi walked into the barn, where Calder was sharpening the hoe blades, and said, "Teach me." Calder looked up. "Teach you what?" "To shoot." "You sure?" Levi nodded. "If he comes again, I'm not hiding." Calder stood, walked to the cabinet, and pulled out the Winchester. They spent the next hour behind the barn, shooting at old tin cans lined along the fence. Levi missed more than he hit, but his hands didn't shake, and he never flinched at the sound. "You're not afraid of the gun," Calder said. "I'm afraid of needing it," Levi replied. "That's how you know you're using it right." They trained until the sun dipped and the shadows grew long. Then Calder said, "Next time he shows up, we don't wait." They didn't have to. That night, just past midnight, the dog barked once, sharp, urgent, then silent. Levi was already awake. Mira was asleep beside him. He slipped out of bed, grabbed the rifle, and tiptoed down the stairs. Calder was already standing by the door, revolver in hand. They nodded, then stepped outside. The moon had risen pale and low, and in its light they saw him. The man stood by the barn, one hand resting on Mira's stuffed rabbit. He held it like bait, his other hand hovered at his coat. Calder called out, "You took the wrong step, friend." "I just want the girl," the man said calmly. "She's not yours," Levi said, stepping forward, rifle in hand. The man's eyebrows lifted. "Look at you playing cowboy." Levi didn't blink. "Take your hand off her toy." "Or what?" "Or I stop missing." The man stared at him. Then let the rabbit fall. It landed soft in the dirt. "This is your last chance," Calder said. "Leave and don't come back." The man's eyes moved from the rifle to Levi's face to Calder's steady hand. Then slowly he stepped back. He didn't run, didn't apologize, just faded into the dark like a snake that knew it couldn't strike tonight. When the sun came up, the man was gone, and Levi stood on the porch holding the rifle tight. He didn't feel like a hero, didn't want to, but he felt something else. Stillness. Like maybe for once, the storm had passed and left something standing. 3 days passed. No riders, no dust on the trail, no quiet threats in the night. Just the hum of bees, the rustle of leaves, and Mira's laughter echoing off the barn walls. Levi still kept the rifle close, not out of fear, but out of memory. He knew danger didn't always knock twice. Sometimes it came in through windows. Sometimes it rode behind silence. But for the first time since he buried his mother, he wasn't looking over his shoulder. He was looking forward. On the 4th morning, he saddled the gelding by himself, checked the straps, tied the bedroll, filled the canteen. Calder watched from the porch, arms crossed. "Where are you headed?" he asked. "Town," Levi said. "You said you needed nails, didn't you?" Calder gave him a long look. "You sure you're ready?" Levi mounted smooth. "I ain't running, just riding." Calder nodded. "Be back before supper, or Mira's going to eat all the cornbread." Levi grinned, not wide, but real. "She already does." Then he turned the horse and rode down the ridge, not like a boy pretending, but like someone who belonged to the trail. The town of Denton Hollow was quieter now. A few heads turned when Levi tied the horse outside the general store, but no one stared long. The barkeep gave him a nod. The stable hand offered him a cold drink. Respect, quiet, and earned. He bought the nails, a bar of soap, and after a long moment of debate, a small paper-wrapped bag of licorice for Mira. On the way out of town, the sheriff met him at the corner. "Levi," the lawman said, "you staying on Nash's land?" Levi met his gaze. "We are." "You feel safe there?" Levi thought about it. "I feel like myself there." The sheriff tipped his hat. "That's better than safe." Levi nodded once, then rode back toward home. Back at the ranch, Mira was helping Calder in the chicken coop, tossing seed with both hands and chasing hens like they were wild cattle. She squealed when Levi rode in, then ran full speed toward him. He swung off the saddle and caught her mid-run, lifting her with one arm. "Miss me?" She nodded furiously. "Brought you something?" He handed her the licorice. She stared at it like he'd given her gold. Calder leaned against the post, watching them. "You ride well," he said. "I had a good teacher," Levi replied. Calder shrugged. "He's all right." That night, they ate stew on the porch. The sun set slow, painting the sky orange and gold. Mira fell asleep with her head in Levi's lap, still clutching the candy bag. Calder lit his pipe and said, "So what now?" Levi looked out across the pasture. "We stay, not running anymore." "No? No, I think we've done enough running. Mira needs steadiness. I think I do too." "You got plans?" Levi nodded. "I want to fix the roof on the barn, paint the walls, maybe build Mira her own bed, one with sides so she don't fall out." Calder puffed once. "That's a fine plan." "Thought maybe we could brand the cattle too, so folks know they're part of something. Part of us." Calder smiled through his beard. "You got a name in mind?" Levi thought, then said, "Just one letter, M for her." Calder nodded slow. "That's good." They sat quiet a while after that. Then Levi asked, "You ever lose someone?" Calder didn't answer right away. "My wife," he said eventually. "She died when the fever came through Clay County. Took her and the baby. That's why I came out here. To be alone, to remember them, and to forget everything else." "Did it work?" "Some days," Calder said. "Others, not so much." Levi looked down at his sleeping sister. "I still see my mama in dreams. Not the night she died, just normal things. Brushing Mira's hair, singing to herself while she cooked." Calder nodded. "Those are the ones that stay. I don't want them to go away." "They won't," Calder said. "Not if you don't let them." Weeks passed, then months. The trees turned gold and dropped their leaves. The wind got sharp. Mira learned to feed the goats and call the horses by name. Levi learned how to shoot a rabbit clean and dress it without flinching. They planted winter beans, mended the chicken wire, rebuilt the barn door from scratch. At the town store, folks started calling Levi Nash's boy. He didn't correct them. One evening, Mira came running inside with muddy boots and shouted, "Calder says I can have my own horse if I stop falling off." Levi looked at Calder, who shrugged. "She's tougher than she looks." Levi knelt in front of her. "Then I guess I better build that saddle rack." Mira squealed with joy. And just like that, the ranch got louder, but not in a bad way, in a living way. The day Calder handed Levi a key was the day Levi understood what home actually meant. It wasn't the building. It wasn't even the land. It was someone saying, "You belong here enough to carry weight." The key was to the tool shed, but Levi held it like it meant something more. And it did. Spring came early that year, and with it, life. The fields grew again. The creek filled with runoff. Mira picked flowers and braided them into Calder's beard when he napped in the sun. One morning, Levi rode into town alone, not for nails, but to ask the printer if they could make a small sign. 2 days later, he nailed it to the gate at the edge of the ranch, burned into the wood, plain and firm, the M Ridge. Calder didn't say anything when he saw it. He just nodded and smiled. They say kids don't last long out west, that the land's too harsh, the men too cruel, the storms too wild. But sometimes when the ground is dry and the sky is quiet, something holds, something grows, like a boy who came with a suitcase and a little girl in tow, who didn't come looking for a home, but built one anyway, 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 anyway,